Hello everyone, my name is Benjamin Gannon and this is my final project on payment processing security. So as an overview, payment processing security is applied to public and private networks every day. Technologies such as websites and e-commerce websites specifically depend on payment processing security just to function. Without it, users would have no secure way to purchase things from the comfort of their home. With that being said, we as users are impacted by it each time we use it. How do we know what websites we can trust? Can we give our personal identifiable information to these websites? Do we know if it's in the right hands? Online transactions as a whole have risks on both the consumer side and the e-commerce side. I'll be going over what we can do to educate ourselves and prevent these risks. The payment card industry has made it really easy moving from the traditional cash payment to other forms of transactions. Businesses have enjoyed this simplified logistics as no real cash is used during an online transaction when dealing with customers, their suppliers, or other entities. From a consumer perspective, payment cards like credit cards, they are a tool used by the consumer to spend borrowed funds and then repay them back later. A debit card, on the other hand, has pre-deposited funds in that consumer's bank account, and they are able to use that tool to spend that money in that transaction without cash on hand. Electronic commerce is the interaction between the web and the global market. It is the trading, buying, and selling of products and services throughout the World Wide Web. Mobile commerce, internet marketing, online transactions, and many other technologies run off e-commerce. Electronic payments allow people to shop at their own convenience any time of the day, no matter the day. We see this trend. It makes it easier and easier to spend money that we have. Big examples are PayPal and Venmo. Some of the more common forms of threats to e-commerce include payments in electronic form, fake and fraudulent credit or debit cards, and the misuse of data. Historically, credit card information was stolen through physical skimming devices. This would give criminals access to all the credit card information stored on the magnetic strip of that credit card or debit card. While these attacks are still prevalent today, chip readers make it more difficult. This happened around 2015 and it added an extra layer of protection. With moving more payments to online commerce, criminals have been able to circumvent the physical challenges of getting the credit card information by using malicious scripts to capture the data on checkout pages on websites. Magecart, digital skimming, form jacking, card scrapers, they all refer to the same thing. It's known as e-skimming. It's the process that cybercriminals use to introduce a skimming code onto e-commerce payment card processing web pages in order to capture credit card or debit card information. It also is used to get any personal identifiable information. That is, anything that you type into a checkout page of a website when you order something online. This can all be captured in real time with no notice to the customer or the e-commerce side of things. This purchase is not affected. It goes through just like normal. It also sends a copy of that information to the criminal in a criminally controlled server in real time. All right, so let's take a look at a diagram that shows us in pictures how this is happening. So if you look at this diagram, there are any number of victims. There are customers on a website. They put in their information, their personal information, into the checkout page where they input their credit card or debit card or PayPal, which would manage it for them. When they put this in, the transaction is being established and it goes through just like normal with no warning signs or any signal to that customer that something went wrong. Or on the other hand, it does not notify the e-commerce business that there's anything fishy going on that transaction. And a copy of it gets sent to that web server to make sure that the user gets what they just purchased. On the other side of things, the hacker gets a copy of it. They get a copy of that information sent to their criminally controlled server that they are able to sell that information on the dark web or wherever they are going to make money from that personal information that you gave to that website. Anytime a cyber criminal is able to get into an e-commerce website and actually retrieve data, they have to have a point of entry. And this requires them to have the ability to exploit some sort of vulnerability. Compromising a victim's network can be done through phishing emails or a possible code to capture the data off their machine. Compromising the payment platform, which businesses use to process payment card transactions, is usually done where a cybercriminal puts skimming malware onto JavaScript of those platforms and then loads it onto the victim's site, the victim being the e-commerce website. Once they have access to one, it gives them more opportunity on other sites as well, if it's being used on more than one e-commerce website. We see this too with third-party applications and add-ins. Businesses allow and trust many applications to run on their websites, aka chatbots, advertisements, widgets, or anything to just improve the functionality of their website as a whole. So these cyber criminals or hackers are exploiting the trusted relationship between the business, the third-party entity, or the payment platform. So I mentioned previously phishing scams and that cyber criminals can gain access to a victim's network and get access to their personal information that way. These phishing scams take the form of false messages by getting the user's attention, thinking it's something that they need to respond to right away. They normally claim something that strikes emotion in the victim to act out of that emotion. Clicking on any links compromises personal data because they get out to a fictitious version of their banking site, for example, and they're logging in, putting their username in and their password in, and then that gets sent to the hacker or cyber criminal on the other end. So a lot of red flags in this screenshot on the left. So the display name looks normal, but the domain name is not normal. It's not coming from Bank of America. You have no idea what recipients are else like on this list. So it should be coming to you, but it could be disclosed to others. You have grammatically incorrect, member should be capitalized. And if you look at links carefully, they go to completely different websites than what's depicted in the hyperlink on the email. So those are a lot of red flags to look for when phishing scams come into your email or any area that you might be wary of. SQL injections are a form of code injection that are used to reveal confidential information and data by inserting malware into a system. There are also other forms of code injection used in the world of cyber attacks, such as script injection and shell injection. Some ways to avoid code injections would be to stay away from vulnerable inputs pertaining to code and filtering. Another way would be to use input validation and monitor principle of least privilege. This principle of least privilege is just making sure that a user is given minimum level of access or permissions needed to perform his or her job function on a day-to-day basis. Most all modern websites use HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol, or HTTPS, Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure, as a way to allow users to interact with web resources. Most sites have switched to using HTTPS For web browsers today, HTTPS functions by granting the user an SSL certificate upon request. This certificate possesses a key used by the browser to make the web session secured from malicious activity. HTTPS is also a good way to know if a site is safe to use. The application of HTTPS serves to verify the legitimacy of a website. This plays into e-commerce as well, since many sites that use it also sell products and services. You can tell if a website is secure by the lock in the top URL. So this lets you know that it is HTTPS and not HTTP. So what can companies do to help find suspicious activity on their website? The first thing a business should be looking at is the FTP and SSH logs. They should look for unexpected activity in these logs because there will be some sort of tampering or modifications to their company's code. If there are complaints from the payment companies that there is fraudulent activity from their e-commerce site, it's time to investigate the issue. If information is being detected to a new domain that administrators do not recognize, that is also a red flag because data could be compromised to those domains that the administrators don't readily recognize. Now that we've identified the warning signs and red flags, how can we prevent vulnerabilities? The payment card industry data security standard, PCI DSS, is a set of security standards designed to ensure that all companies that accept, process, store, or transmit credit card information maintain a secure environment. Companies should change default credentials across all devices and users on their network. Default credentials are easy to compromise and a vulnerability for the company. Implementing the least privilege strategy will make sure not all employees are super users on the network. They should only have the access they need to do their job. Implementing two-factor authentication for all employees, so if a password is compromised, they can't be utilized. Lastly, educate your users and your employees on the security risks to eliminate as many vulnerabilities as possible. So in conclusion, payment processing security has a lot of moving parts, and credit card or debit card fraud comes in many forms. We must realize that all sites, as sophisticated as they can be, with as much security as they can have, are still susceptible to breaches. It all comes down to education on you as a consumer, being aware of the warning signs such as phishing and what sites are safe to purchase merchandise on. As well as companies' employees, they need to be able to know from their logs when their site has been tampered with, and all this combined will lead to less damage done if an attack makes it through the security measures.